looking at the graphs of these transformations, so similar to your homework, number 13 is boomerangs. Okay, so we know the boomerangs normally are at, you go to where the x and y axis cross, those are your asymptotes, so you go right one, up one, and you go left one, down one, and then you draw your boomerangs. But the rule for transformations is we always do flips first, so if that's the normal 1 over x graph, what's this negative out front going to do?
Flip it.
Flip it, but here's the deal. The negative can either be on top or out to the side. The negative's kind of ADD, likes to move around, so it could be on bottom, right? Is negative 1 over x the same thing as 1 over negative x? Is it also the same as negative 1 over x?
Yes.
So which one is it flipping over?
Whichever one you want.
Whichever one you want it to, because it doesn't matter with the boomerangs. It could flip over the x or y, and it's going to be the exact same thing. Think about it. If you flip over the x-axis, if you flip from here to here, flip over the x-axis, and if you flip this one from here to there, it's the same thing as flipping over the y. So my answer is going to be this graph right here, the one in red, is what you get when you flip it over an axis. So then you would disregard the part in black. Okay? So that's the boomerangs. And then my domain and range, domain would be what?
X cannot equal 0.
X cannot equal 0. What would the range be? Y cannot equal 0. All right, let's go through these. The next one, what does this one do? Now remember, you have two asymptotes. You have the y-axis and you have the x-axis. What's going to affect the y-axis asymptote? Shifting what? Shifting left to right. This one right here will move only when you shift it left and right. This one will move only when you move up or down. So what I've got here is I have a shift left 2, so I know I'm going to move my asymptote left 2. And the x-axis stays exactly the same. So then I go to where the two asymptotes cross, which is right here. And then I go right one, up one, and left one, down one, because it didn't flip, and I draw my boomerangs. So then domain is what? X cannot equal, x cannot equal what?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. And then range. No, I was breaking it out, I guess, yeah. All right, x cannot equal negative 2 and y cannot equal 0. And the domain and range is just whatever the asymptotes are. The domain is just going to be x cannot equal that asymptote, and the range will be y cannot equal that asymptote. So if you find your asymptotes, you know what the domain and range is. This one right here, what do you have to do on the bottom to get the correct shift? See if you remembered. Yeah, you got to factor the negative out. So it's really going to be 1 over negative times the quantity x plus 2 plus 1. So this negative flips it, and you can say it flips it over the x or y. It really depends on, if you say it's with the x, it flipped over the y, but it's going to do the same thing. It's going to move it from this quadrant to this quadrant, and from this one to this one. So it's going to be here and here, but I have to shift it. What does it shift? Left 2, and then what else? And it shifts up 1. So it shifts left 2 and up 1. So there's my asymptotes. Then I just go to where the asymptotes cross. Since it flipped, I'm going to go right 1, down 1. And I'll go left 1, up 1, and then I'll draw my boomerangs. So domain was x cannot equal what?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. That asymptote right here. X cannot equal that asymptote. What's the range?
Y cannot equal 1.
Y cannot equal that asymptote right here. Y cannot equal 1. Any questions? All right. Finish the rest of these real quick. It's only to here. And then we'll see if you have any questions on the other page. I won't do all those. I'll just have an answer key for that anyways. What does this one do? What does this negative do?
Flips it.
Technically, it flips it over the y, sorry, not the y, but the x-axis, but it's not really going to matter because it's the same thing. And it'll go right to, what else?
Up 1.
Right to, there's your new asymptote, and then it goes up 1. And then I flip it, so it's going to go right 1, down 1 since it's flipped, and left 1, up 1. What's the domain?
X cannot equal 2.
Domain is x cannot equal 2. What's the range?
Y cannot equal 1.
y cannot equal 1. What about number 17? What kind of graph is this?
Sideways.
Cubic line down.
Sideways disco curve, line down disco curve. What does it do?
Flip it over.
Right 1? Because the minus 1's on the inside. What's the domain? All real numbers. What's the range? All real numbers. What about number 18?
Shift
Left two
down.
down.
Left 2, down 1. Lying down disco curve.
All numbers.
And then just domain and range are the same.
Domain is all real numbers, range is all real numbers. Nice thing, unless you're dealing with an even root, a square root, or a fraction, or a log, the domain's always going to be all real numbers. Okay, just a few more. What does number 19 do?
It flips first.
Flips over the what?
X-axis.
So it's going to be an upside down line down disco curve. What else does it do?
It shifts right one down and down two.
So right 1, down 2, and then it's an ups, or it's basically a left-handed line down disco curve, or upside down. So flip. Domain is what?
Real numbers.
Range is all real numbers.
All of the real numbers.
All right. What about 20?
It's a bird.
Bird. What does it do?
Flies.
Up 1. It flies up 1.
Bird. That's the word.
Domain.
All right.
What's the range?
Greater than 1.
Y is greater than or equal to 1. What about number 21?
Flipped bird.
Dead bird.
Dead bird.
Dead bird.
Dead
Yeah,
bird.
flipped upside down. It's down 1, and it flipped over this negative out front, flipped it over the x-axis, so it's an upside down bird. Okay? So domain is still all real numbers, but what's the range?
Less than or equal to 1. Negative 1.
Less than or equal to negative 1. Okay? Alright, 22. It goes right 2. And this is volcanoes, right?
Yep.
So your asymptote goes right 2. The horizontal asymptote stays the same. It's still the x-axis. Doesn't go up or down. And then it didn't flip, so it's going to go right 1, up 1, left 1, up 1. And then just draw your boomerang. Or volcano. What's the domain?
No.
X cannot equal 2.
Yeah, x cannot equal the asymptote. What's the range?
Y is greater than 0.
Y is greater than 0. What does this one do?
Say,
Um,
it just shifts up there, but then it flips.
And it flips. Left 1 and it flips, so it's going to be where the crosshairs are at. It goes right 1, down 1, left 1, down 1. And then draw your volcano. Domain.
Can't equal negative 1.
X cannot equal negative 1. What's the range?
Less than 0.
Less than 0. Last one.
Left.
Right 2, up 1, upside down, flipped, bird, domain, all real numbers, range,
Less than or equal to.
y is less than or equal to 1. And it flips because it flips over the x-axis, negative all front. Any questions?